We've been doing this podcast for 2.5 years now, and the most listened to episodes are always the ones talking about career and certifications in Treasury. So we decided to partner up with the AFP, the Association for Financial Professionals, so we can offer you a $100 discount code on all of the AFP's products. This includes, of course, the CTP, the Certified Treasury Professional, which is hands down the most renowned and recognized certification in Treasury out there. And of course, the access to the CTP exam prep platform as well. Check the link in the description to access to those discount codes and take your career to the next level. Ernie, thank you so much for joining us on the show. We are going to talk today about personal brands and how important it is in Treasury and how to actually develop a personal brand. Can we barely start? It's Corporate Treasury 101, but let's do the 101 of everything. Can you start by explaining us what is a personal brand and what's the intrinsic value to it?
Sure. I like to say, I like the word personal brand, but I often say professional brand. It gets people on the mindset. They're certainly intertwined together. The reason it's important is because it's like your personal commercial. Like in the US, we have the brand Coca-Cola. I like Coca-Cola. Yummy, yummy. It makes me happy. It makes me feel good. So for me, my brand is how I communicate the value to someone in working with me on any type of project. And so I think that's why it's important. Your professional brand powers your career success, whether you know it or not. It's important because your professional brand is on all the time. My podcast, your podcast, my brand is on. My brand, my jacket is part of my brand. So your brand exudes from you. So again, it's how you helps you make an impact. And if you don't take control of your brand, then it will be someone else's control on how they perceive you. There's a lot of dimensions to your brand that we'll talk about more. And I like to focus on the online part as well as the other because it's important. It's your professional value proposition, your elevator pitch. What's that? I teach people how to do that in 5 minutes or less. Your LinkedIn profile, your resume, your skill set, and your network. And all of these things make up your brand. And I don't think people really talk about all the dimensions of your brand and how you're on like all the time in no matter what you're doing and what setting you're in.
And so, maybe very basic question, but why is all that important? What's the value you see to it?
It's important because people have an incentive to work with you. So it helps you build trust with your relationship. So someone sees the value that you bring to me. Part of my brain is I'm a human being. People see that I value them as a human being. I want to help them get better. I want to have a mutually beneficial relationship. So that makes them more receptive to what I have to say. It also makes them willing to share with me, whether it's something good or something bad. And so the more I have that relationship, they respond to my brand, I respond to their brand. That helps us build a connection. And the connections are really how you deliver value in your career.
Has that always been a corporate concept? Because we all really know branding or even personal branding when I think of Beyonce. That's a personal brand. I think of Taylor Swift. That's a personal brand. How does that translate to the corporate world? Why is it in there?
Good question. Most people don't have, this is my Beyonce brand. This is my jacket. So I think the important thing to think about is how are you authentic? What is it about you that makes you unique? What is unique about the way that you deliver value to someone? So what is it that makes you you? So I talk about this in terms of your value proposition. So I tell people, if I'm going to call people in your network, what are they going to tell me about you? What are the good things they're going to say about me? And think about that and own that and figure out what makes you unique as a professional. That's hard for people to grasp sometimes. You often say, well, you got to explain to me how you do it. That's tough. Do you really think about that? When you're doing things, you're like, it's kind of a different mindset.
Super interesting. So do you have any practical examples of like a well executed personal brand in the corporate world, which people can think of and go, okay, yeah, I get what he means now?
Oh, and I'm not trying to be egotistical. The easiest one to point to is my own, because I understand where it comes from and what it is. So, and I've spent a lot of years trying to understand what that is. So if someone talks to me, if they listen to this podcast, I think they'll get my brand. And I'll tell you how you can form your own brand. Just think about, okay, if I call your boss or future boss, what good things would they have to say about me? What about your previous and current colleagues? What would they have to say about me? What about the people that work for you or used to work for you? And what about your connections, your bank partners, your professional peers? And sometimes people have this already in their LinkedIn profiles. So you look at your little recommendations and you pull these things out. Here's mine. Ernie's a human being 24/7, no matter what. I have no business switch. Ernie comes to the table with passion and energy. I'm very vested in the success of all around me, all of those around me. I can lead and I can follow, and I take personal accountability for everything that I do. And that's it. And it's never the same. And I want people to think you get in the elevator and my brand is that. It's like, no, it's part of the conversation. And what I like to tell people is your personal brand should be exuded. If I looked at your LinkedIn profile, if I look at your resume, if I see you speak, it starts to automatically come across as the part of the way you present yourself.
It's super interesting. So, and I like the idea of using your personal brand throughout the theme of this episode, because you understand it and it's very deliberate by the sounds of it, which is really interesting. And that's really, I think, important. I don't think people are deliberate enough with their personal branding, right? So before we get into, your personal brand, treasury and whatnot, can you start with the results? So how have you seen your personal brand help you in your current activities, such as the treasury webinars and other things that you do?
Yeah, I just think that for me, it's been a process over many years. So to me, the biggest indicator of an outside would just be that I have over 20,000 connections in treasury and finance. I don't have followers. I don't like the word followers. I really despise the word follow. I like people to connect with me. So that's one thing that's evident. It's also evident in how many thousands of people that I've been fortunate enough to have attend my webinars. The fact that I'm asked to speak as a subject matter expert quite often on webinars, and when I go to conferences, people know who I am, they remember who I am, and I also see that people appreciate the way that I do things in addition to what I deliver. I'm not perfect. That's part of my brand. I have passion, I have energy, and I care about what I do, and I have accountability. So when I get that back from people that I meet, that really shows me that what I'm doing matters.
Mm. And so how did it play a role in your current activities, Ernie? Let's take the example of treasury webinars, if we can be very specific. Right. Because we're gonna get into personal branding in treasury, why should people develop one, how to develop it, and the potential result they will yield. But to stay on your practical example for now, how has it helped your business and your career to have such a well-defined and out there in the world personal brand, or professional brand, as you like to call it?
Right. So I think that part of it is that there are things that I like to contribute. So I like to write articles, I like to do blogs, I like to do white papers, and I think having that brand with the treasury audience, I think they trust what I have to say and how I have to say it. So that obviously is very helpful to me in my brand. So I have to continually figure out how to contribute. So I like to try and how do I contribute to the treasury and finance profession? And I never have charged anyone for any of my webinars, any of my content, anything, and that's going to continue. So I like to use this phrase more. You guys have had Paul Barnhurst on, and he does a much better job of communicating it and doing it. His philosophy is give first. And so I'm always working on that. So just having that philosophy of giving first. And the other thing that I've been able to do is when people reach out to me, I always tell them, I'll put as much effort into our relationship as you want to. And I think people see that. and they value that. And I think those things come across as well in everything that I do and what I see in the results, which are far than perfect. I've done a lot of innovative things. They haven't worked. Some have, some haven't, but it's not going to stop me from trying to do something different, because I see a lot. I interact with thousands of people, and I just see, why doesn't someone try and do this? And rather than wait for someone else to do it, I want to go out there and do it first.
Awesome. And so, gently moving into our niche, in treasury in particular, why is personal branding particularly important for professionals in the treasury space, and what will it bring them?
Yeah, one of the things that why I know it's important, I've done some survey work, and what I've seen is that over the past, especially 2 or 3 years, the responsibilities of treasury are increasing. And the good news is we're actually seeing more treasury staff and more professional development opportunities. So you have to be able to deliver once you've earned that seat at the strategic table. And when expectations are higher on you, in order to deliver value, you have to be able to collaborate. Within treasury and across treasury, surveys have shown, we all know there's silos within treasury, right? There's definitely silos across the office of the CFO. So I've tried to focus my folks in treasury to, how do you remove silos within treasury, but how do you collaborate with AP and AR? Cash is king. How do we own all cash movements? How do we understand the why of those? So as you build those relationships with AP and AR, you can take more control of cash, optimize everything, working capital, every type of cash movement, and you can help these people understand relationships with suppliers are critical. Relationships with customers are critical. Every communication should have a purpose, right? And also, as we have more technology, it's important that we build relationships with our providers. You don't want the guy that sells you something and goes, they say, customer success, customer success. Well, let's make them do it, right? Okay, what does that mean? How do I build a relationship with you so you feel accountable to me? So to just keep saying over and over, relationships, technology is awesome. It's great. It's not going away, but the human part of it, the communication, the collaboration is where people are going to find that they deliver more value and they'll have more opportunities. So what you'll see is, as the better you collaborate, you build trust with folks. Then they ask you questions. Would it be nice if the AP person goes, oh, hey, can't we work on this? How do we work on that? And also, if you're in treasury and you're in insurance and risk management, you have to get people that trust you to share, right? When you're trying to get forms. I'll give you an example when someone didn't trust me, which wasn't my fault. We had an office open in Mexico. They had this grand opening in Mexico. So about 3 weeks later, I see pictures of the grand opening, and they have a mechanical bull out in front of the office. And they knew I would be like, oh, there ain't no way, But if they'd have trusted me, they would have told me. And then I would have told them no, but we would have figured something out, right? If I'd have just made sure they signed the waivers and all those good things. And so if you have trust with people, it makes your life easier and opens you up to opportunities to move. Maybe you want to move within treasury. Maybe you want to be the CFO. You never know. And people will respond to that if they respect what you do.
I like what you just said here. And we have a line that we like a lot with Usami is people buy from people, not from businesses. Meaning putting the emphasis on how important it is to build the relationships, to be trustworthy on the long term, and make a point to always deliver on your promises, be there when needed, and building those strong relationships. But I like how you made the link between, okay, treasury as a function is one thing, but the people within the treasury, they build the right relationship with the other departments, then you unlock efficiencies and synergies that you might not have had if it wasn't the case. So super interesting. One of the things our audience responds to a lot and is really interested into is how to grow a career in treasury and how get education, but also how to apply this education and make sure we grow in a career in treasury. What's the role of personal brand here? How does that enable growth in one's career?
Well, to me, there's kind of different ways you can grow your career. I think we've already touched on how paying attention to your, let me put it this way. Pay attention to you have a professional brand at work, right? So if you invest in that and others respect your professional brand, that's going to help your career. So getting to know someone, helping them understand the value that you bring, setting expectations with them, just showing an interest in what they do and how they do it and how you can help. Ask someone, what are your biggest challenges? Everyone likes to complain, right? Ask anyone that knows me, right? So build those relationships, and that will come organically outside of work, depending on where you're located across the globe. Look for opportunities. If you have a story to share, lessons learned, contribute, come on a podcast, right? Like this amazing podcast. If you're in the U.S., maybe you have an AFP regional chapter. They always love people to contribute. So in some sense, you got to find a way to toot your own horn, right? I mean, and then you should reach out. Hey, I saw you spoke on this. How did you make that happen? So don't be afraid to ask others. How have you done this? If you write an article, you give anyone a little ego boost, especially me. Oh, man, I'll walk in traffic for you if you tell me you like my suit, right? So those are things, mindful of your brand. Ask people, deliver value, your brand within work, but also your peers. As you start to build your brand with your peers, and not that you want to leave your job, but you'll start to get job opportunities. I tell people, you know your brand is working when you're getting job opportunities organically. If you're not, then you need to work harder. Same philosophy for myself. If people aren't reaching out to me on a weekly basis for potential collaboration opportunities, then I need to work a little bit harder in my own brand, which is an investment. You need to stay on top of it.
Super interesting. So advice to the people who are listening to us right now. What are the things that are beyond the work harder? Like what are the things you should watch out for and say, okay, I'm not getting this organic job proposals or this organic collaboration propositions. What's the right thing to do? What are the first steps to implement?
I think one area where people just don't spend enough time is on their LinkedIn profile. That to me is the foundation of your brand. If you do a Google search on anyone, if anyone finds you interesting, an employer, anyone, that's going to come up. So you really need to invest in your LinkedIn profile. That's a whole different session there. The other thing is you have to be wanting and to receive feedback from others. Hopefully you can have an honest conversation with your boss, and he's not going to sugarcoat it. It's just going to say, may seem weird. What are the things you think I need to work on? The other thing is to do, this is Dr. Phil stuff, but you sit down with yourself. Okay, I'm happy to share. There's certain skills you need to be successful in Treasury. You look at, this is what I have. This is what I don't have. This is where I'm at. How do I upskill myself to get here? Do I ask for help? Do I go to a webinar? Do I go to Strategic Treasurer? How do I get myself up to where I want to be? And then ask people, your colleagues, hey, or ask them for help. Maybe this guy's the tech guy. Hey, John, how did you learn how to do Chat GPT? Or just having that willingness to learn and that eagerness to learn. Sometimes people will automatically feed that information to you, and it will become, in a lot of ways, once you turn on your listening and your perceptive, it becomes self-evident things where you might need to do a little work.
I think I really understand this from a business perspective, right? Ernie, if I have a business owner, we're business owners, we have our podcast, we understand the value of our brand, you have your own businesses as well. To a treasurer specifically, I'd love to bring the example to them as well. So I really like the example of you and your personal brand. Can you name a treasurer that's doing this really well, perhaps? And then perhaps break down with us a little bit what they're doing really well?
I wish I could. I don't have anyone that comes to mind. I do have a CFO. Her name is Kate Sholnick. She was a guest of mine on one of my virtual events. And kind of what I like about what she does, more as a leader, she reviews the professional brand of all of her team. She looks at their LinkedIn profile, works with them directly, and gives them advice.
Cool.
Yeah, she makes them own their personal brands, and she helps them develop those brands. So I would say any leader that not only takes ownership of their brand, but takes the time to look at what their teams are doing as far as themselves in taking ownership of their career. So that to me is a leader. How can you take ownership of your career? So if you look at my recommendations, I have more than one person that said, I was trying to help them get better and I didn't care if they left my department. So that is what a good leader is all about.
I have one in mind, which is Leanne Perkins. I think she's doing that.
Oh,
really
yeah,
well.
yeah, I
if,
know her. Yes,
She's a treasury advocate. I think she named herself on LinkedIn, and she's really that. Like, she's really getting out there, out of her own way to advocate for the treasury profession, and it's like quite impressive. And I guess any treasurer that ends up going to lots of speaking events, speaking at conferences, going on podcasts, that's definitely what you want to develop, right? Like, define what is important for you and then go out there and talk about it. Definitely Leanne, for instance, like educating people on treasury, sharing knowledge, pay it forward. So that could be, I guess, one of those examples.
Yeah, I've had Leanne speak at one of my virtual events. I also want to convey that treasurer is important, but every person, whether they're a treasury specialist, treasury analyst, we all need to be doing this. So you don't just need to be a treasurer to own your brand, be important, be a leader. You're a supervisor. Everyone should be doing this throughout their career. And we should be doing this, and I'm going to give everyone a preview. I'm going to start a community here in a few months. It's focused on every finance professional, shining the spotlight on them. It's only about human skills, and that's it. And we need more of that. Being supportive of every person matters in treasury and finance. We need to figure out how to support everyone throughout their journeys. And how do you be a good treasury specialist? We should be telling people, right? Yeah. A treasurer is fine, but we're not all treasurers. We're not CFOs. So that's my career passion as well, is how do we help everyone through every stage of their career?
Super interesting. Do you have any anecdotes of good career moves that have come out from personal branding? Like people have progressed in their career or made big jumps, like you said, job offers that people get from having good personal brands?
What I have seen names, I talked to so many people. What I have seen is, here's one I think it's self-serving, of course, because that's why I have a business. But we had this gentleman friend of mine, I think you probably know him as well. You probably interviewed him, Mike Richards. Mike Richards and I did a podcast on how to go about winning a job opportunity. Well, I just picked a job off of LinkedIn. One of the people that listened to the podcast, they got the job based on the advice that Mike and I gave, which part of it was about her brand, like selling her brand, connecting with people at the company. So that's one specific way. I can tell you that when you see someone speaking quite a bit at an event, maybe at AFP or something, I guarantee you that they are getting more attention. They're getting more organic outreach. So I would say almost across the board, when someone puts themselves out there on a podcast or blog or a magazine article, it's almost without exception that it's definitely not going to hurt, right? And it's definitely going to help. Invest in that brand. Eventually, you will come to see the value. I have no doubt.
Yeah, I like that a lot. So as an ex-consultant, and I think Hussam had quite the same experience as engineer at Procter & Gamble, we got those job offers on LinkedIn. They were just not very good job offers. Right. So good personal branding will eventually be about, hey, you're so much out there and paying it forward that people will reach out to you to actually give you bigger opportunities that you would get if it wasn't for your personal brand. And that's where the great career moves come from.
The other thing I want to say about Treasury, sorry to jump in, is unfortunately, what you'd like to see is every generation has their movers and shakers in Treasury. Mm-hmm. This generation that I've seen here, I don't see enough. I can't tell you, I wish I could tell you 4 or 5 people that are like treasury managers or practitioners like Leanne. We need Leanne is probably not possible to replicate. We need 100 Leannes, right?
100 Leannes.
We don't see that. The field is there. I'm a treasury specialist at this tiny little company in Fort Wayne, Indiana, which is in the middle of a cornfield. Within 4 years of working hard, I was the subject matter expert at the AFP for the whole country, right? I'm not a rocket scientist. I work hard. I care about people, right? So the field is there. Just, I would say, go out there and grab it. It's there. Let me know if I can help you. The opportunity is there. Take advantage of the opportunity that you have.
And I mean, 4 years on the scale of a whole career is not that much, actually. It's pretty fast. Like, if you can go from quote unquote nothing to speakers at an event like the AFP one, that's pretty solid.
Yeah. Yeah. No, this is I'm tooting my horn. Now I worked there. I was a subject matter expert for the whole country for Treasury. It wasn't that I got to speak. I was hired as the leading expert by AFP, which is the biggest
Treasury
organization. So that's why I'm trying to tell people that you can ascend as high as you want to be there. It's not a dream job. They don't exist. But that just shows if you try, all you have to do is put your name out there and deliver, and people will respond to it.
Awesome. So we often call Treasury a support function, right? Which is in nature true, right? Treasury is here to enable the business. How does the personal brand of a treasurer going above and beyond in terms of, okay, I'm renowned in the treasury space. My AP and AR department knows me. I have some good relationship with legal and tax eventually because treasury always has something to do with tax and the other way around. But how do we go from I have a personal brand, I'm known in treasury, to, okay, I have an actual impact and visibility at the company's level, if not board level whatsoever?
Yeah, so great question. So your professional personal brand needs to go up the corporate ladder as well as across the corporate ladder. So survey work, I've done it. It shows that not many people feel they have a seat at the strategic table with the CFO, but there's a lot of people that are close. They're occasional advisors. They do the reporting and things like that, that we need to focus on. How do you communicate with impact? How do you tie what you do to the bottom line? One way that I've seen Treasury folks really ascend is they can become looked at as a resource, especially on M&A side. It might initially start as maybe it's insurance, maybe it's whatever, but we help the CFOs realize that we have a view of the business that nobody else in our company has. We know how all the parts work together. We impact all the parts together. So who better for you to ask questions of? I know all the mechanics. I know the people in the field. I was a manufacturer. I know the plant people. I know FP&A. I know insurance. I know risk management. I have my fingers in the pie. So this is something that no one else in the organization has. No offense, not even the CFO. So part of it is just we need to communicate more effectively the value that we already are bringing. It's not being received and respected. So that's part of it, is your brand communicating with impact, that value, and tying that to the bottom line. Let's say, for example, I did this AP automation project. I saved us $500,000 expense. Bottom line, every year, $500,000. Oh, you tie it to the profit. Tie it to the profit, and then the CFOs will pay attention to what you're doing.
Yeah, 100%.
Ernie, move us into the how. So treasurer listening today, which many do, they've said, okay, yeah, really, I have to up my game on my personal branding overall. What does that involve? Where do you start? Is personal brand, I need to start posting on LinkedIn? Or how do I go about this? What's the step by step?
What I would do is very too systematic, but this is the way I do things. But these are the components of my brand. Your professional value proposition. Do you know what it is? If you don't, call me. I'll do 10 minutes.
Describe that. What does that mean?
Yeah. Your professional value proposition is your elevator pitch. Why do you want to do business with me? Why am I important? How do I offer value in your relationship with me? So if I have you in an elevator, how can I convince you that it's important for you to invest in getting to know me on a professional level? And then that comes across your LinkedIn profile. You should make sure that's sharp. There's a lot of free resources out there. Borrow from people. Hey, resumes, look at your resume. These are probably the two most important things that people don't tell you how to do. Your skill set. What's your skill set? What about your soft skills? What's your skill set? Where are you at? Where do you need to be? And then your network. This is a whole nother podcast. Your network, there's so many dimensions to your network. You have a network at work. You have a network within your department. You have a network with your bank providers. How do you build your network? What does that look? Okay, who do I know? Who do I need to know? Who knows who I need to know? And pay attention to that network as well. All of those are part of your professional brand, and all of those deserve your attention, and they all work together.
One of the other parts of the system. So that was you explaining the personal, corporate brand. What else?
Yeah, I mean, they meld together. In the ideal world, there's not a disconnect. Like I said, I don't have a business switch. So you should feel authentic in your professional brand. So I tell people, if you're not outgoing, don't try and fake like you're outgoing, right? It has to be authentic. So how do you marry those things? A lot of times I know people, especially in negotiating and relationships, they're good at it in the personal level, but at work, like, you have a wife, right? Yeah. You have kids, right? You have kids, right? That's the same, same thing. Listen, respect, so getting to marry those together as much as possible. And believe it or not, I didn't never listen very well. When I started paying attention to listening professionally, I was like, you actually kind of listen a little better. And I'm like, cool, well, thank you. Right. So they should be feeding each other. And in the ideal world, they will merge together.
Super interesting. Do you think people are inherently born with the skills to build a personal brand? Or is it something that you can, or everyone does develop deliberately?
I think people are definitely wired different ways, but I think a lot of people are afraid rather than they don't have the ability to do it. Part of it is the way you're brought up, and I don't think I think people my generation were taught not to toot your own horn, and that is the absolute worst thing you can do. You got to be able to toot your own horn. You got to be able to back it up. But there's definitely, if people are more outgoing, they might have a little bit. I don't think they're better at it. I just think they have less fear. So as soon as you can get yourself over the fear of failure, right? Everyone that meets me does not like me. I'm lucky if I'm at 10%, but I don't care. I am who I am, right? I am who I am. I'm authentic. Some people are having a bad day, whatever. So, move on, do your best. And if you put effort into it, you'll get there. I think being authentic helps. If you're comfortable with being authentic, I think that helps those who feel like they're more introverted by nature. But if you meet introverted people, once you kind of crack that shell, you ever been there? You're like, whoa, you're not. You just kind of haven't looked at that the right way. No one's asked you the right questions.
That's very true. I think so it's a bit difficult here because on the one hand, one would argue that developing a personal brand is getting yourself out there, go on stage and speak, have that discussion, post that thing on LinkedIn, post a picture of you on wherever, go speak to that CFO, go to that other treasury department. So it requires somehow to have a bit of an outgoing nature, or at least forcing yourself into it. But on the other hand, what you just explained about authenticity, I like that a lot because you are unique in the way that you are yourself, and that's what your personal brand should be focusing and based on.
Yeah.
So how do you balance that?
For people that are a little bit more introverted, I try and talk to them and give them specific tips. So one of the things I say is that if you are around someone that's more extroverted, you kind of get the ancillary benefit of them. And let's just say you're introverted and there's someone you need to connect with who's kind of has a bad demeanor. Somebody at work likes this person. So go to them and say, hey, I'd really like to talk to John. How do I do that? And then I tell people, it's having something to do with lunch. Can I take you to lunch? Mind if I ask you a question? There are kind of soft openers, and part of it's just getting over the fear You can be authentic, but sometimes you're very scared, and someone might bite your head off. You got to learn how to just kind of let that go and have confidence in yourself. But I'm happy to have conversations with folks. You're right. People always say collaborate. Nobody tells you how. So kind of it's trial and error. But being authentic, my perfect example is if you never talk and you go out and start doing knock jokes, people are gonna, wait, whoa, so they're suspicious, of something that's going on. So you kind of, in some ways, you kind of got to ease into it a little bit. I don't think you can just like automatically, flip that switch. So give yourself some goals, short-term goals. Maybe there's some low-hanging fruit. Just build your confidence and your success, and then ask people for help. I mean, people are very generous. Hey, John, you know all these people at work. How did you do that? And, just take what you can from what someone else does that fits with your personality.
I like that a lot. I like what you said there about go for the low-hanging fruit. I think a lot of it is getting over the fear of rejection or coming across as looking stupid. And so, realize no one really cares. If that does happen, people are more concerned about themselves than they are concerned about you. But the low-hanging fruit is a really good one. So I remember once a mentor of mine gave me advice. He's like, just go to the shopping mall and start talking to assistants at the store. They're going to speak to you. You might be a customer, right? And just learn how to start talking with people and learn how to get over that fear of going up to someone and asking for help. And once you do that enough times, it becomes really, really easy. And then you can go and start asking people at work for help and saying, hey, how does this feature in our TMS work? How do I do this thing in Excel? How do I send this, schedule this meeting in someone's calendar? These sort of little things that are 2 minutes. Most people are willing to help, like you said.
And on LinkedIn, I like to tell people it's if someone writes an article, if someone speaks, if someone makes an effort, they will always respond if you give them a compliment. I'm happy to share with people as well the way I word my LinkedIn invitations, the way my outreach, but everyone likes to say, I really liked your something. So if you're like, this person's really important, it doesn't matter if they're whoever the greatest person in Treasury is or whatever. I attended your session, it was really awesome. They will more than likely respond to you. So I think the way you reach out to someone makes that fruit a little bit easier to grab, I would say.
There's an interesting aspect of making your case in a Big Four, from my experience, when you achieve the higher level of the hierarchy, like directors, principals, partners, and so on, is that, of course, how much money do you bring to the table in terms of billable clients, business, but there is also what are you going to be known for? And one of the stories I've heard from one of the partners is like, okay, I'm going to be the guy who, when he says that something's going to be done, no matter if I go an all-nighter or if it requires me to work 48 hours, I will get that done for you. Can you change it though, early in your experience? Okay, I want my personal brand to be this because right now it sticks to my values and what I believe is true and important. But over the course of a career, 10 years from now, maybe I will think something else is more important. Okay, whilst this is still relevant, now I want to be renowned for that particular point. Subject matter expert, for instance, that's typically one. You can be a subject matter expert in AI, and who knows, maybe 15 years from now, I don't think that's what's going to happen, but AI is irrelevant and I need to be known for something else. So how do you go from, okay, right now I've developed a super strong personal brand on this particular point, which is benefiting me, but tomorrow I think I should change it or change a bit the approach. Can it happen, and how do you do that?
It can absolutely happen. This also needs to align, right, with your brand and where your career is and things where you find passion to love what you do. I think that's what changes it. So I've got a perfect example. For me, it's still very important that everyone attends my webinars and that I have virtual events and that I'm known. People come to my events and they can earn credits and they think I deliver great surveys. But right now I'm starting a community for finance professionals. That's my legacy. I want to be known that I gave back to the finance profession, that I'm the one that helped people realize that their social skills matter. No one's going to remember that I had 6,000 people on a cash forecasting seminar. They might remember my jackets, which is obviously very important to me. But I think as you transition, as you let life take you to your career, not try and force yourself into going straight up the ladder at your company, I think some of those things all will become almost self-evident to you, but you have to decide what those are and make those happen yourself. So what do I want to be known for?
Yeah.
I mean, so I think that can absolutely change, and people should aspire to own that and have that be dynamic and not have that be set in stone.
How do you maintain it? If we take the other end of the spectrum, saying, okay, changing is possible, that's how it happens. Personal branding is not like a one-time thing. It's not like, okay, I'm going to speak at that event once at the AFP talking about cash flow forecasting, and then my personal brand is there to stay for 5 years. You need to maintain it, nurture it, grow it. It's an ongoing process. So how do you achieve that? Like, what's the right balance, investment of time, investment of effort? How do you do that?
For me, I make sure that I have time to devote to things I have a passion for, make time for learning. So if you would have known me over the last 10 years, you'll see that I was doing treasury webinars. Oh, I also was a GCologist. I also am a stand-up comedian. I also do improv. So it's not necessarily a formal side gig. It's your mind. This is my mind's side gig. Follow things that you think are interesting, are passionate about, things that tweak your interest. They rev your motor, all the time. So make sure that you make time for that, and then you'll find the balance. So just in my business, I have my clients. I got 50%. I'm doing this. The other 50%, I want to do something totally different, whether it's treasury, finance or not. It could be I'm going to go on the road and do stand-up and buy a bus or whatever. That's part of my brand. That's part of who I am as a person. That's what makes me feel like I'm successful and growing. In order to feel like you're growing, I think you need to follow where your passions take you and make sure you make time for that.
Is there a particular aspect that is more important than the other? The first thing that comes into my mind is, okay, do I want to be renowned for my interpersonal skills, or do I want to be renowned for my deep expertise in, name your hard skills here? Do you have a preference? Is one more important than the other? Can either be good as long as you play it well? How does it work when it comes to, okay, either being a technical expert or people's expert, if that's the way to put it?
I think everyone needs to find their balance. Like you said, some people are wired differently. So becoming a technical expert may be a smaller climb for people, and they may need the personal part may be really hard. Or for other people, the personality part, the networking, that's easy. Mm-hmm. But the other part is hard, so you need to find your balance. It's almost the ROI for your time, and then find where you want to be, where you're comfortable. And I think it goes up and down, right? So I would say for me, besides the last 2 years, I spent a lot of time trying to get up to speed on automation, RPA, and all this other stuff. And I had more technical focus. But now that I've seen all this AI, ChatGPT, Bard, I'm like, whoa, people need help on the soft skills. So I think that you can go up and down based on what you need, but also look at the ROI for yourself and focus on what delivers the ROI for you. And some things are just harder.
Arnie, thank you so much for coming on the show. Was there anything that we touched on that we didn't give you the opportunity to express fully, or you'd like to add to any things that we've already discussed?
No, I really appreciate the depth of the conversation, the many dimensions of the conversation. But I just want to stress to people that a lot of people think it's much harder than they think it is, building your professional brand. I want to also communicate that I'm here to help people. Just go ahead and reach out to me if you want to learn anything more about your professional brand. And I would say with your professional brand, be authentic and leave your ego at home.
Great advice. Great
Amen.
Advice. We'll put all the links below. What's the best way to find out more about you or Treasury webinars?
I would say the best way is probably just on LinkedIn. My name, Ernie Humphrey. Just go on LinkedIn and type that in. Hopefully you'll find me. I'm probably second degree connected to most of you because I'm got like 2 million second degree connections. So let's make that a first degree connection. As much effort as you put into our relationship, I guarantee you'll get more from me.
That's amazing. Ernie the Y Humphrey, which I like.
All right.
It's part of your personal brand. It's super cool. Ernie, thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.